So sorry. No, that's not
the egg. The egg. Eggs. All of us, at some point in our lives, have been eggs. Normally at the start. My egg was fertilised in 1973 in the back of a Vauxhall Viva 1.6. Now it's a little known fact that 50% of all conceptions are actually twin conceptions. What happens is the egg, to double its chances of survival, splits in two. Now occasionally, very occasionally, both of these eggs will grow up to be twins, but more often than not, when one egg becomes dominant, the other egg is simply ejected. Or sometimes it is absorbed by that dominant egg. I believe I am one of those eggs, divided at the very start, split in two like a demi-man, and half of us therefore must feel the same way, like there's a bit of us missing, and we spend our lives searching for that missing half, and we try and fill the gap with careers and box sets and ill-advised affairs with Portuguese ladies called Hernandez. Beautiful ladies. hairy as you like.
Eggs.
The eggs. All of us are searching for that one egg that can undivide us, but what we fail to realise is it may have already been absorbed by the dominant egg, the thing, the person we seek to make us whole again may already be within us.
Or has been smashed against the wall of our mother's uterus.
But for the purposes of this story, within us.
But statistically it's cool.
Numerically, it probably smashed, but sorry, this could we just. I should point out this is Frederick. We did the show last month in Kidderminster, and the main piece of feedback we got from the audience was, well, he said it needed to be more visual.
He didn't like it at all.
No, so Frederick's here to.
Yes, I'll be doing the audio visuals. I will be operating the OHP, the Alba sound system. I'll also be playing second 7-guard crossing attendant and your father.
Yes. Yeah. Well, you see, we tonight is very much a work in progress.
I also have a joke.
Oh.
Yes. I'll be using that later in case it gets a bit flat.
So, as I said, tonight
Do you want me to use it now? I don't really know.
So tonight is very much a work in progress. We're off West End, as you can see. Well, we're actually under West End, the subterranean West End. But if we do make it to the Terranean West End, we will obviously be using much more complex things than overhead projectors. This will be incorporated into a much larger lighting design. There'll probably be
2 or 3 or 4.
who knows? Gobos. It could be really great. Well, I guess what we're saying tonight is it's a truism in theatre that the audience has to do 50% of the work with their imaginations, and all we're saying is tonight it may be closer to sort of 90. Yeah. High 8. This show is set primarily in the late 1970s, early 1980s, and I can see that it's quite a young audience, so we're slightly concerned that some of this, like the projector, may go over your head. I know, it's very good. Back in the 80s, that joke was quite the regular thing.
This is OHP. We used it to take horizontal writing and make it vertical.
Yeah, this is how we put things on walls before blue tack. Yeah. So if you don't mind me asking, I find someone incredibly young. You're how young? Can I ask when you were born?
21st December 1997.
What the fuck?
1997.
I'm going to take it over.
I listen. These are my theatre shoes, and I've had these since 1995. So some things there might be quite a large. Maybe the next 50 minutes might zoom over. So if there's anything you're lost, and we don't want to lose you on the way. So if you don't mind, if
You mentioned things like rumbelows.
yeah, like rumbelows, an electrical retailer,
Like radio rentals.
coal and we stored our stuff that we dug from the centre of the earth to heat ourselves during
Human dignity.
Yeah.
Each person is innately valuable and society should do its best to ensure.
Yeah, that sort of went.
Yeah,
like sort of 1989. So if there's anything that goes over your head, just pop your hand up. We won't see a hand. Just look dazed and confused, and we'll just pick up. Okay. So
already.
No, I think that's just a resting face. Okay. So this story is about how I lost my balloon and with it my mother. And the first part is how I got my unusual name. My name. My name came from my father, James Reeves, Jim Reeves. Now, some of you old fellas will know that Jim Reeves is a world famous country and western superstar. That's not my dad. My dad is not Jim Reeves, country and western superstar. This is Jim Reeves, country and western superstar, and that's my dad there. My dad hates Jim Reeves, always hated Jim Reeves, not just because his music was slightly substandard, but because they shared a name. Now, as far as my dad was concerned, this wasn't a fair share, because Jim Reeves is known as the Jim Reeves, and my dad merely, Jim Reeves. He spent his whole life on telephone saying, my name, yeah, Jim Reeves. Are you like the country western superstar? No, I'm Jim Reeves. And it irked him to his soul. And he made a solemn vow. No son of his would have an unoriginal name. His son would have a name all of his own. My mother wanted to call me Paul. It's a short name, Paul. And my dad hated it because it was short. My dad had a theory that things got snazzy if they were long and then cut in half. He got it from Arthur Fonzarelli. You won't know who Arthur Fonzarelli is. So there was a programme in the late 70s called Happy Days, which had a motorcycling man called Arthur Fonzarelli who shortened his name to make it snazzy until he was called the Fonz. A Fonz? The Fonz. The Fonz. So names that are long, that can be made short, are snazzy. Let's pick a name. Can I take your name at the back?
Elizabeth.
Elizabeth becomes Liz,
Yes.
Lizzie, Eliza,
Yes.
Beth, Betty. Ellie. You can go crazy with the snazziness with Elizabeth. Fredericks can become rather splendid Freds. Still time? Okay. So my dad didn't like Paul because Paul is a short name, and it's Latin, it means small, and it is. He also hated the name because it was the name of his brother, my Uncle Paul. And like I said, my father didn't want me to be named after anyone. I was to have a totally original name. And that name... I'm going to have to address that. Why? What is this?
It's an irony yogi.
Okay.
It's a yodel when something ironic.
I understand this. Just two questions.
Yes.
Why and why?
Well, after you were in Kidderminster, a lot of it went over his head. I think especially the irony. So I got this to point out to the audience when any irony is happening, in case anyone from Kidderminster is in.
No, this is London. This is a theatre literate audience. They understand the concept of irony, really. Yeah, completely. I won't ask you. Just because of could you describe irony to everyone? You understand irony as a concept?
Yeah.
Yeah. So irony. 20 words or less. No, any words or more.
Irony. Ironic. When something is ironic.
She's completely right.
I'm not going to say what that answer was, but...
So irony. To expand on what she said, irony is in itself ironic. It's a perversity of fate. Almost like when life plays a little trick on you. That's a nice
Like when someone says they know what irony is and then can't explain it.
Yeah, in an exact way. So thank you for beautifully pointing out in a very active way what irony is. But see,
It works better. It works with that. Try it. Say something to them that's ironic.
Okay. Okay, so S Club 7's final hit was Don't Stop Moving, shortly after which they did stop moving. So, they understand that, and that's got a laugh, so you don't need that. That's just
Try it again. Say the same thing again.
S Club 7's final hit was Don't Stop Moving, shortly after which they did stop moving. I still think it was better than the first one. But well, it's a work in progress, so we'll work on it and we'll progress, and we'll keep it and we'll see if it works, and then
You should have a...
yeah, we'll figure out at the end if it goes.
If get a light for dramatic irony. Then we wouldn't know it was there.
Dramatic irony is when the audience know more than the characters we're going to play. So, Okay, well let's just try. Where the hell were we?
Jim Reeves.
Jim Reeves. Yes. So, my father hated it because it was the name of my uncle Paul and because it was too short a name. And for 6 months I had no name whatsoever. I was simply known as the baby. The baby. I was known as baby. They couldn't come up with the name. In the end, the name came from my Auntie Shirley, who's Auntie Shirl, which is snazzy. And she wasn't actually an auntie at all. She was my mother's good friend. Not a best friend, but a better than good friend. Not good enough to be imaginary sister to my mother, but just good enough to be my imaginary aunt. Auntie Shirley had incredibly massive feet. Here's a photograph of her feet. This is an adult human man's foot today. And that just goes to show you how large her feet actually were. She's a very petite lady, but which only accentuated how massive they are. Whenever I always looked at her, do you know that Ingspot song? Your feet's too big. Because we went to Harlem for a table for two. They set it for 4 of us, me, your big feet, and you. From your ankles up, you sure is sweet. From your ankles down, she's too much feet. That was Auntie Shirl. She was married to dead Uncle Paul, who's not to be confused with Uncle Paul. That's my Uncle Paul. He's very much alive. Dead Uncle Paul, he's not actually an uncle. He's not even a good enough pretend uncle to be an imaginary uncle in his own right, but he's married to my imaginary aunt, therefore an imaginary uncle by default. And he's dead, so we call him Dead Uncle Paul. Now, whatever you do, don't tell Auntie Shirl that we call him Dead Uncle Paul, because she doesn't know. As far as she's concerned, he's very much alive. Uncle Paul was taken from us. He was a lifeboatman on the Bristol Channel. The story of his death, it's an extraordinary tale, full of bravery and daring do. It really opens a window on what it's like to be a man walking the tightrope between life and death, but unfortunately tonight we really don't have time to tell it, so we're just safe to say he fell off the boat, he drowned. And my Auntie Shirley never, ever accepted that fact. She would spend her days gazing out over the Severn estuary, like a desperate Penelope, hoping that the gods would pity her and return her husband safe home as they did with gallant Odysseus.
Or as they did with Harold from Neighbours.
So to that end, she got a job on the second Severn toll crossing. She would take funds with her right hand, keeping her eye out just in case Uncle Paul should be vomited forth. With her left hand, she would pass the time by doing puzzles, take a break, crosswords, quiz words, things like that, and then she'd send them off and fill them in. She was brilliant at it. She did it all day long. She was actually right-handed, but she trained herself over the years to write with her left hand. And she won everything. She was frequently successful. At the end of the day, she would just flop off to the local post office and post all these answers, and she would win everything. Pamper days, clothes vouchers, dog food. She would win record vouchers. A record, it's like a CD, but it's bigger. She would win, Clairol foot spas. You are never going to know what this is ever. A Clairol foot spa it's like it's like a foot jacuzzi. It was a bowl full of shallow tepid water that you plugged in and then put yourself inside, and it would gently massage your feet by rippling the water around the undersoles. She had about 19 of them. She was incredibly successful. We are actually known in the Truro area as having some of the softest underfeet of the whole population. When you go to a house, you all get one. She would lay the table for you, go knife, fork, spoon, foot spa, knife, fork, spoon, foot spa, knife, fork, spoon. For Auntie Shirley, 2 foot spas, her enormous feet. People used to take the mickey out of her. The mick out of her, snazzy. The mick out of her for her hobby. They'd shout at her,
"Ooh, are you taking a break, Shirley? You didn't take a break. You didn't take a break. You want to take a break from that? Take a break from take a break."
We had one line. But she was undeterred. And one day, she won the big one. An all-expenses trip to Waikiki, Hawaii. In one fell swoop, the whole thing was worthwhile. She walked in the next day, holding aloft the winning letter above her head, and they cried out,
"Oh, you didn't take a break, so you want to take a break?"
She fixed them with a stern glare and shouted,
"No, I'm going to Cocking, Hawaii."
and off she went, Hawaii. And she came back with these wonderful photographs of this beautiful holiday. This is the 1970s. People never really went on holiday at that time. You just went to whatever bit of dirt and water was in your county. And, photographs, you won't know what they are either. A photograph is like a selfie, but you're not in it. She came back with these photographs of swaying palms and smiling natives draped in flowers. But my father was only interested in one thing, this beautiful hotel and pool centre. It was called the Wind That Passes Over the Mountain Hotel, or to give it its Hawaiian name, the Hotel Ki'anu. He looked at the nameless dwarf sleeping in his arms, and a bell rang deep in his heart.
I like it. I like it. The wind passing over the mountain. Ki'anu. Ki'anu. You shall have a unique name, my son. I shall name you Ki'anu Reeves.
So yeah. Yes, my name is Keanu Reeves. Now, granted, I'm not the Keanu Reeves, I am merely a Keanu Reeves. Just in case any of you are in any doubt there. This gentleman on the left, this is a millionaire movie actor who goes by the name of Keanu Reeves and is mainly known as the Keanu Reeves. I run a small sandwich shop in Truro. My name is really Keanu Reeves.
If you want to tell the difference between the two of them, the Keanu Reeves sounds like this. Bodie, this is your wake-up call. I am an FBI agent. And a Keanu Reeves sounds like this. Would you like that on a granary bat?
Actually sound like that. No, we're flattening the accent a little. You know much. So, the Keanu Reeves, millionaire movie actor, a Keanu Reeves, me. People every single day of my life, almost on a half-hourly basis, will say to me, "Oh, Keanu Reeves, are you named after the millionaire movie actor?" And I take great pleasure in telling them, no, I'm named after a 3-star hotel pool and leisure complex that my father never stayed in. For 16 years of my life, my father had his wish. I had an exotic, beautiful name. People would say, Keanu, I've never heard that. Yes, it's Hawaiian. Oh, wow, how exotic. I like you. And then Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure came out, Dangerous Liaisons, and in a matter of one $60 million weekend, my name went from idiotic to exotic to idiotic. There are some advantages. I do run this sandwich firm. My sandwich firm is called Keanu Reeves Lizard Point Sandwich Break Time.
Yeah, precisely.
I know, I didn't stress it very well. So my firm is called Lizard Point Sandwich Break Time. Yes.
No.
Yeah,
that's awful.
That's awful, isn't it?
It's a terrible name.
It's not, it's a correct name.
It's a terrible name. Let me show you why. It depends on people having seen the film Point Break and having been to Lizard Point in Cornwall, and how many people have done both of those things? None. That's 0 people.
She did it!
Why? There she is, we can see her.
Well, I don't want to be a populist, do I? It's a good name, and it's for erudite, learned people. For people who don't know what foot spas the Fonz is.
It's not for this audience, is it?
No, clearly not. It's the best I could do.
But there are way better ones.
Such as?
Loads of people have seen The Matrix, and almost everyone's aware of mayonnaise.
So what is it?
Keanu Reeves The Matrix.
what the actual fuck is going on? You're not fucking helping, you're fucking doing snotty stuff from the start.
No, it's adding layers, I'm adding layers.
The machine that fucking yodels! It's layers.
It's adding a yodeling layer.
It's not, it's ruining flow. I forgot a bit and everything.
I know. I just want to think they noticed though, I think we're fine.
No, just want to hear the story of the sad name.
Oh, it is a sad name. You have a sad name. I've got a sad name.
You've got a sad name, but it's a hilarious name.
My name is very sad.
Your name is not. I have a sad name. Your name is the funniest name I've ever heard of.
It is. How dare you? Take that back, Keanu Reeves.
I'm not going to take it at all. No, I'm going to let you. Sorry. I just don't. No, because I think this is really important because we can put it to bed for once and all. If you don't mind, this is just part of the work. We just need to take a vote, if that's okay, on who's got the saddest name. So we'll say both of our names, and then I'll ask you to vote either for my name, Keanu Reeves, or his name.
Hang on. I was giving a backstory. You gave it. Oh, there was a wind passing over the mountains. Oh, my father, Auntie Charlotte. 2 people died before we got to your name.
Okay, well you do a backstory. Yeah, and I'll do a yodeling machine, and let's see how you will enjoy this.
I think you'll find it adds layers.
Push the room.
That's the top left one.
What's this?
I don't know, I didn't check the other buttons. I only needed a yodel.
What is this machine? The yodel machinans.
You see, now you're undercutting.
Where did you buy it?
Special eBay. Ladies and gentlemen, once upon a time, I too was seduced by the snaz. My name is Frederick. And once I was a Fred. The most important thing in life is to know who you are and what you want to do. Am I right? Am I right?
Yeah.
It was rhetorical.
You did ask him twice.
Yeah, it could be rhetorical twice. It was rhetorical as many times as you like.
But no, it's fine, you're alienating 1/30th of the audience and with it 1/30th of the vote, so go crazy, that's fine.
It's Brechtian.
Which would explain why nobody likes it.
I think you're doing your best to
I
undercut.
think of what Norton's creates a cathartic experience, and Brett was very
and they're going to get one
something
any minute now. When we get to the vote. I always knew what I wanted to do. And who I was. I wanted, from the moment I was born, I wanted to make patios. I dreamed of making patios. Yes.
patios.
Yes,
Is that a technical
it is a
term?
technical
To
term.
make
Yes, you make a patio. I've got a GMBQ in it, you make patios. That is the patio lingo.
That's why.
Stop it! Do you want me to tell the story or not?
Mostly yes.
So I spent 3 years of my life training to make patios. To make the best patios there were. And one day, I started my own patio making company. I had the livery done, I had a van, I had it painted on the side, I had sweatshirts made, Frederick's Patios. We make the best patios that you can make a patio like. Frederick's Patios. And as the van sat there on the driveway, my mother came up to me. And she was upset because she thought, because I hadn't used our surname, that I was ashamed of it and of her. And I was. I didn't want her to know that. So I agreed to change it. I would change the name. I changed the name. But this being the 1980s, extra letters cost money. In a telegram or in some sort of classified advertisement. Every letter you added...
Wheel of Fortune.
Wheel of Fortune. You could buy letters.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the most expensive letters there were. Every letter you added, you had to remove one. So I came down, I was no longer Frederick, I became Fred. And I added the surname, and I had it etched on the side of the van in a laser, which was irremovable. I took out a huge billboard near the station. I had a new sweatshirt made up. I took out another in the Yellow Pages, which is like the internet, but it was in a book. And there I was, one morning going out, and I saw my own van standing there, Fred West's Patios. This was 1994. At this point, no one knew he was going to turn into the foremost patio-based murderer of the late 20th century. So I tried to laugh it off, which made people really cross. As I went past in the van, they'd shout, "Murderer! Or you raped your daughter and murdered 15 women!" depending on how fast I was going.
It's a funny name. It is a funny name.
I can still hear their screams.
It's hilarious. See, your name is only sad. No, but it's true. Your name is only sad because of the context in which it sits. Because you're a patio maker. But if you made, like, if it was Fred West sandwiches, or
That would be worse.
that's actually a bad example. If it was Fred West chocolatier, it wouldn't be sad at all. It's only sad because you make patios. My name is sad in whatever context it arrives in. If I said to you tonight that you were going to spend an evening in a small, dark Victorian cellar with Fred West, and then he walked in, you would be relieved, mildly happy, just generally in a state of loveliness. Now, if I said to you you're going to spend an intimate evening in a London theatre with Keanu Reeves, and I walk in, you would be angry, confused, and would demand a refund. See, your name conjures up lovely, happy relief. My name conjures up disappointment, anger, and refund. So mine is the worst name. So sit down and just go back to the acetates and do what we did in Kidderminster. Don't fucking argue. Don't, because he would do cow eyes and things, and it would just. Right? No, don't. God, your face is so punchable. My dad was called Jim Reeves. Now, most people have normal jobs. Most people's dads bake breads for a living. They join woods for a living. They make patios for a living. My dad slightly resembled someone else for a living. He was a lookalike. Or to be precise, he slightly resembled 5 other people, depending on the length of his beard. He wasn't like a beard man. We began the year in January with quite a short beard, where he would play Captain Birdseye. He would attend fetes, pretending to Shanghai children and promoting omega-3 products. Then, as the year progressed, he would let it grow out a little, change his hat, and would start playing Buster Merryfield, who's Uncle Albert in Only Fools and Horses. A very good series, you won't even know. Essentially, a man falls through a bath. There were like 150 other episodes that were extraordinary, but your generation will never know of its day. Then, as the beard grew out, he became Karl Marx. He put a bit of shoe polish in. Then we sort of reached November time, as the beard reached its maximum luxuriant length, where he started to play Charles Darwin. Just in time for Christmas, he'd pop on a furry hat and become everyone's favourite dead saint, Father Christmas. And it was beautiful, regular, cyclical, like the tides. At the start of the year, he would shave it all off, and we'd start all over again. Now, this is the 1970s. Look-aliking is very much cutting edge right now. This is 10 years before the mini-pops. I'm not going to explain the mini-pops because that's a big can marked worms. But we won't even see me later. 10 years before the mini-pops. The idea of having a Victorian anthropologist around your barbecue was giddy stuff then. So much so that he was successful beyond his wildest dreams. He opened an agency called the Make Mine a Double Lookalike Agency. It was originally called the Jim Reeves Lookalike Agency, but people thought it was just a lookalike agency that specialised in Jim Reeves lookalikes, and the work started to dry out. So he changed the name, and with the change of name came the change of fortune. Now, as I said, this was the early days of looky-liking, so you didn't have to exactly resemble the person you were trying to be. They weren't that fussy back then. My father maintained, as long as you had 2 things that slightly resembled the person you were trying to look like, then that was enough. Let's look at some of his clients. So, this is Queen guitarist Brian May. As you can see, structurally his face is completely different, but he does have 2 things. He has a splendid afro, and he had an incredibly wide stance. Two things.
This was his Indiana Jones, who was a plumber from Clifton, who again basically looks nothing like him at all, but does have a hat and a whip, and you need two things.
Then he had this gentleman, whose name was James Lucas. He was 6'2". He was a Michael J. Fox lookalike. Again, looked nothing like him, but he did have a red gilet and a very hairy hand.
Two things.
Two things.
This is his Samantha Fox, who actually looks a lot like the actual Samantha Fox, but refused to go topless. And as he said, you need those two things.
His final client was arguably his best. She was a Margaret Thatcher lookalike. Now, as you can see from the slide, this is the Margaret Thatcher, and this is a Margaret Thatcher. Now, she looked more like the Margaret Thatcher than the Margaret Thatcher. She didn't just have two things, she had everything. She had the hair, she had the jewellery, the bag, she had an incredible gift for victimising the weak. She had everything. But something about her irked my father. Maybe it was the Karl Marx in him that could never quite see eye to eye with the Thatcher that lurked inherently in her. And they would argue. They would argue all the time. Then these frosty silences would turn into heated arguments, and, well, he let her go. She's actually the first and only person in the world to be sacked by Karl Marx. It's a good time for the year. So, the next time I saw this woman was the day that my mother died. So I should explain. Don't. No, I'm not doing anything. It's really important. See, my mother, when she died, she gave me this. Oh, I've had this for most of my life. It's a peanut in a box. It was the peanut through which she met my father. See, my mother worked for Resemblance, this electrical retailer, and they were having a Christmas do, and they hired my father to play Father Christmas. And my mum began choking on a peanut. Now, my dad had been playing Charles Darwin for so many years. He had a great knowledge of anatomy. He knew exactly what to do. He jumped over the table, gave her the Heimlich manoeuvre, ejected the peanut, then gave her the kiss of life. Now, she didn't need the kiss of life. He just thought he'd never get a better chance to kiss her. Yeah, now you can. It's a nice story, isn't it? My mum. My mother was killed in 1981 by a womble. No, a womble. It's C.S. Beresford. It's like a large fictional bear.
Like a mole with OCD.
And so what happened was we were at a fete in Stow-on-the-Wold. Now, don't ask me what a wold is. I'm not entirely sure what a stow is, but they've got one, they popped it on a wold, and this is where we are. It's South Gloucestershire, Stow-on-the-Wold. My father's beard is approximately Karl Marx length, and to which end he's been hired as the soak the bloke in this... Soak the bloke? There's a bloke soaking stand, and he's been hired to be the bloke. Now, you probably won't know what a bloke soaking stand is. A soak the bloke stand, in the old days, before televisions and PSPs, we would put people on huge ducking stools and throw wet car sponges at them in the hope to get them wet, or, better still, to hit a mechanism that would release the stool into a vat of freshly hose-piped water. And my dad was that bloke. Now, this is South Gloucester, and he is a very popular attraction. They queued round the block to throw their sponges at their arch enemy. My father batted their attempts away with copies of Das Kapital, screaming, "Workers of the Wold, unite! You have nothing to lose but your chains and your sponges." My mother was on the other side of a roped-off square at a cake baking stand. She baked a cake, and the idea was you could guess the weight of it, you could win it, and it was a monster. My mum was a wonderful cook. She cooked with nothing but love and chocolate. The first layer was dark chocolate, the middle layer milk chocolate, the top layer white chocolate. Its name? Death by Chocolate. Now, It was 2 inches taller than me at the time. I was 7 years old. It was a behemoth. She had to put it on a large wallpapering table. You won't know what wallpapering table is. A wallpapering table, in the old days we used to cover walls with paper. Everyone seemed to have a table that could fold out that you would wallpaper on. At all. They just sort of disappeared.
You don't see wallpaper anymore.
You don't see wallpaper or wallpapering tables.
I mean, paint.
Yes, paint. Yes, my father covered the wallpapering table with a velour curtain, just like this, in order to make it snazzy.
Could have cut it in half, made it more snazzy.
Yes, yes. He also got a vase to put on the table so that people could put their guesses in the vase. Now, my mum didn't like this at all. This vase was a present from Auntie Shirley, and she didn't want anyone to touch it. So when they put the guess in it, they go, "Oh, that's a lovely vase." She'd go, "Yes, present!" A little bit too aggressively, just to try and ward them off. I was over by the buy a balloon stand buying a balloon. And little did I know that in over 20 seconds' time, a womble would take my mother's life.
Which womble?
Tobermory.
Might have to be.
The PA announcer, true to his job title, made an announcement on the PA.
Will everyone please go to the cake baking area to see the main attraction, where the undefeated Women's Guild will defend their tug-of-war title, and also the Red Devils motorcycle display team will be performing death-defying... stunts.
And out they roared, the Red Devils, a 5-strong motorcycle display team. All of them, for reasons we do not know why, all dressed as wombles. I have no idea why to this day. We're 140 miles away from Wimbledon and there's not even a common nearby, which I believe is their natural habitat. But out they raced and they were fantastic. They were Tobermory, Tomsk, Orinoco, Uncle Bulgaria, Madame Chalet. They began doing donuts around Uncle Bulgaria, who was scared and confused in the middle. Madame Chalet started doing flirty endos for the dads. And it was extraordinary. The crowd surged forward to the roped-off area. Now my father's up there on his ducking stool. I'm at the balloon stand, and my mum over by the cake baking area. Then the big finish. They brought out a ramp. They placed it just in front of Tobermory, who began angrily revving. The rest of the wombles lined up on the other side of the snout. Tobermory, Tomsk, Orinoco, Uncle Bulgaria, Madame Chalet. They all laid end on end. Foot snout, foot snout, foot snout, foot snout. Orinoco kept getting up and mock fainting, but Uncle Bulgaria pulled him down to the delight of the crowd, gave the paws up, and Tobermory roared up the ramp. He roared over the top of Wellington, over the top of whichever womble that one is, over the top of Uncle Bulgaria, over the top of Orinoco, and then over the top of Madame Chalet. And at this point we will stop, because Margaret Thatcher enters our story. Not the Margaret Thatcher, a Margaret Thatcher. Fresh from her ignominious sacking, in her hand a wet car sponge, in her eye a thirst for revenge. She aimed the sponge at my father and threw with all her might. Now luckily, Tories, not very good throwers, mainly because they have no moral compass. And she flew directly over my father's head and landed into the mouth of the womble. Now, I think I've been really clear about this. These aren't actually the wombles, these are our wombles. These are men dressed up as wombles. So what is the mouth of the womble is actually the eye hole of the man within the womble. Now, the womble put his hand out to his mouth out of instinct, because wombles, let's face it, are incredibly instinctive creatures, to remove the blockage. And the very point that he is flying 3 feet above Madame Chalet's thorax. The front wheels land on the ground and he veers into one direction, past the undefeated women's tug-of-war team and towards my mother. He went through some bunting that clotheslined him and dragged him behind the bike. My mother looked up to see a 50cc rat kite heading towards her. Now she could have moved, she could have got out of the way, but again, instinct. She couldn't leave the cake. It took so long to bake, it was practically a second child. It was 2 inches taller than the first one. She couldn't leave the vase, it was a present! So she began wrapping the vase and the cake in the velour curtain, looking up just to see the womble smash through the rope, through the curtain, through the table, through the vase, through the cake, through my mother, sending a shard of glass into her throat, severing her jugular. Now the womble momentarily forgot he was a womble. He ripped off his womble head, and I remember him skidding in the grass and dirt and cake and mud as it matted his fur. My mother's blood pumped almost black against the velour curtain. Our decorating table was smashed to smithereens.
I should point out at this point, the womble is a fictional creature renowned for its tidiness.
Don't. The announcer said over and over again.
Would St John's ambulance please come to the cake baking stand? Would St John's ambulance please come to the cake baking stand?
Now, I will never forget the blow.
And with the honour of a white Austin Allegro, please move it, it's blocking the cat to rat stand.
My father was the first to break the silence. He knew exactly what to do. All those years playing Charles Darwin, he knew what to do. He leapt over the rope. He knew he had to fashion a tourniquet, so he grabbed the tug-of-war rope. But unfortunately, the Women's Guild wouldn't let go. Again, instinct! They were undefeated! It took 13 men to wrestle that rope away from those 3 determined women. By which time my mother had bled to death. I let go of my balloon, and I watched it leave the earth. With it, my mother. So that concludes the main bulk of this evening's story. So what we're going to do now is just have a quick Q&A session, just so that we can just move forward from here, really. So we're looking for suggestions, things that you liked, things you didn't like, things that you would like to see differently.
What did they say in Kidderminster?
About the Q&A?
Yeah, they hated it.
They hated the Q&A, but we wouldn't have found that out without the Q&A, so it's a valuable process. You leave? So if you have any questions, just pop up a hand.
You
And
said you were going to write more. You said you were going to write
I just didn't want to have all the time, we were quite busy.
doing Womble Aztec.
Yeah, so I just don't know where to go with it. I think that's a kind of nice story. We can't make it more than an hour because you have to pay extra for the theatre. So, any questions at all? Yes?
Margaret Thatcher, how much do you really hate her?
Oh, the stories I can tell about the hatred I hold for that woman. I've hated every single thing of her. Actually, I mean the real Margaret Thatcher I've got no problem with. It's the fake Margaret Thatcher that really offends to my soul. Or Margaret,
Why did Margaret Thatcher throw that sponge?
you know what she threw.
I know why she threw the sponge, but they
No,
don't.
you don't need to know why. It's the sorts of
Wasn't because she was let go, was it?
No, it wasn't because she was let go. She was okay.
I think. Do you want to know the real reason?
Yes.
I'm not telling you it's banter.
Oh yes, you are.
Oh no, I'm
Oh,
not.
yes, you are.
Oh no, I'm not.
yes, you are.
Oh no, I'm not.
It's
beneath you. It's behind
Oh,
you.
Right, I'll tell you. Because they don't need to know, because it's not really part of the story, but I'll just tell you. It'll take about 2 seconds. She didn't throw it because of her ignominious sacking, she threw it because she was carrying my father's love child. There, that's the end of it, but that's not really what
That was quite important information.
Yeah, if I was
Could you
doing
tell
a
it
show about that woman, but I'm not! Yes.
Could you tell it better?
No, I'm not. It's cost £214 plus VAT to hire this place, and I'm not spending that money on that woman. Any questions from the floor? Yes.
Do you know anyone who can tell it better than you can?
Oh yes, I do.
Brilliant. Great. You've got
How long
lines
have you been
here.
telling us?
Oh, ages.
How long? You have slides?
Yes, there's slides for you there, and you've got lines.
How long is this?
The sound cues are
You've been
there.
planning this since Kidderminster. Stroud? Okay, go. Yes, go, do it. But you'll have to contribute to the costs.
All right.
Because we're losing money.
I know, I can see. Mrs. Thatcher didn't throw that sponge because she was let go. She threw it because she was pregnant with your father's child. She threw it because of the despair. She threw it because of the shame. She threw it because of the me. Driven wild by the satanic bastard love spoil inside her, her words, not mine. She was driven to a crazy act. But their relationship hadn't always been like that. I've got her diary here.
From 1975.
I might read a little bit to you. 12th of February 1975. Massive gout. Rotary. Sandwiches adequate. Rotary. Look-alike question mark. And underneath she's hurriedly written Rotary. They quickly began a passionate affair. You can tell, just the next entry is bird's eye adequate, climax question mark. Sandwiches poor. Rotary. As I say, when she found out she was infected, as she saw it with me, she tried to take her own life using children's discipline, which actually did have pictures of wombles on them. No.
No, I've done the wrong thing. I'm so sorry.
This one goes on forever. She left a note. The note she left.
If anyone's to blame, it's the satanic embryo of piss and shit and disappointment and shit that lurks within me. Oh, Rotary.
After your mother's death, the town turned on my mother, who had been a woman so strong that Wombles couldn't kill her. The town turned on her, and she packed up, took all her savings, and we ran for years. We ran and we ran and we ran. We ran as far away as we could go to get away from those people, because previously they just shouted, "Bitch!" at her. Now they shouted, "Murdering bitch!" at her, and she couldn't take it, so we ran and we ran and we ran.
Where did you run to, Frederick?
Eber Vale, 50.7 miles away. No, that's backwards.
No, that's Welsh.
It's never easy to be the new kid at school. It's especially never easy to be the new English kid at a Welsh school. It's even more not easy not to be the new English kid whose mother looks like Margaret Thatcher at a Welsh school in a mining town in Michael Foot's constituency in 1983. It was never easy for me. She got more and more isolated, became isolated from everyone as she grew more and more disturbed. She wanted me to dress up like Mark Thatcher. She got me to try and organise coups in Equatorial Guinea. I was nothing like him, so I was quite good at it. So then she tried to dress me as Carol Thatcher. She made me go around not paying poll tax and being racist about tennis players. I used to have to sit there in the playground, in a blonde wig, in the corner on my own. My other children were playing with He-Man and Mega Drive. I would be pretending to have an affair with Jonathan Aitken. Listening to Milli Vanilli on tape, who weren't even really singing.
It just occurs to me that it's actually the news of your arrival that spurs your mother to throw that sponge.
Yeah.
So in many ways, you killed my mother.
Yeah, but you actually did kill my mother.
I didn't kill you. Killed my mother.
You killed my mother.
You killed my
We've
mother.
been through this. You
killed my mother. You killed. Let's not get bogged down with who killed whose mother. Just it'll muddy the waters. We did have a muddy waters, actually. He was an African-American early riser. Two things. You know, at least you had a mum when you were growing.
You had 6 dads if you include Father
I
Christmas.
didn't have a dad. What, you think I had a dad?
Of course you had a
I
dad.
didn't have a dad. My dad was never there for me. He was just out, looking like other people, touring the country, being someone else, somewhere else. At the weekends, he'd go to the Welsh office, which I assume must be you. Don't think that makes you work. Don't. He would just leave me with whatever look-alike wasn't working that weekend. It was normally Dustin G. Have you any idea what it's like growing up in a world of look-alikes when you don't look like anyone? The only person that I looked like was the one person my father couldn't look in the eye. My mother. He was desperate for me to slightly resemble someone else. He'd go, come on, work on your two things. But I just couldn't. I couldn't find those two things. Dustin G used to put his hand around me and he used to say, cheer up. There's always worse people off in the world than you.
And that person is always me. I had a terrible childhood. My father wasn't there when I was born. And to be fair, I could always rely on him not to be there at any occasion. Children need routine. My parents very quickly got me into a routine of neglect. He wasn't there on my 5th birthday. I remember him telling me that, what can I expect? I wasn't there on his. You reap what you sow, he said. And then after we went to Ebervale, I was left alone, living with a low-level Tory vandal in the Welsh valleys. She used to go and stand outside steelworks, holding plastic, waving, going, "Steel doesn't work!" We used to go into Asda and she'd make me snatch milk. We couldn't just take milk! We couldn't just have milk, we had to snatch milk! She used to chase Arthur Scargill around and around. No, Arthur Scargill, just a local man who was ginger and refused to ballot miners, 2 things. It came to a point, there was a point she reached where the only thing that gave her any pleasure was to go to the park and feed the birds with poison. And one day, as she stood there, strewing ground glass which had been pressed into bits of mighty white, kind of bread, in front of the swans, when bang! She shot a goose. She did not shoot a goose.
It was instinct. Sorry.
It's funny. It is funny. It is funny. Okay. Bang! She had a massive stroke. You see, I think that's killed her.
That's actually probably funnier. Sorry.
Even then, she wasn't well liked in the NHS, so they resentfully dragged her off to hospital and tried to revive her with mainly slaps, I think. But that night, she quietly and peacefully passed away, screaming the word Belgrade.
No.
Left that out of your story, didn't you?
Yeah.
It's not my fault, though, is it? I was sort of. It's not my fault. You kill her. I'm not a swan. I was 134 miles away at the time. At the time, I was in the Guildhall, London, attending the Lookalike of the Year Awards. I was helping a W.G. Grace, not the W.G. W.G. Grace, find the dressing rooms. He was just an old man with shin pads. Those were his 2 things. And then I saw her across the foyer. Margaret Thatcher.
The Margaret Thatcher?
No, not the Margaret Thatcher. Margaret Thatcher. It was a statue that had recently been commissioned before moving to its permanent place of residence in the House of Lords. Now, I'd seen Margaret Thatcher 100 times, it just didn't really bother me at all, but to be faced with a look-alike Margaret Thatcher, a fake Margaret Thatcher, was more than I could take. I grabbed the cricket bat from W.G. Grace and I began smashing her across the head with it. Now, a security guard came running up to me and he grabbed my arm and he said, "No, you're never going to do it with that. Try this." And he gave me a crowd barrier. I swung this crowd barrier with all my heart, all my hate, and I divided her brutally, severing her head from her body and making her shorter, and it was snazzy. Her head rolled across the Guildhall foyer.
And exactly at that moment, 134 miles away, my mother's head was thrust down with a cerebral hemorrhage that caused a stroke. Now, is that coincidence? Is it voodoo? I don't do voodoo. You do voodoo. You do voodoo.
I don't do voodoo!
You do voodoo, and you knew the voodoo that you do so well.
You kind of know that smashing that statue would have induced a voodoo stroke on your mother. I probably wouldn't have done it.
Yeah, you would?
Yeah, I probably would. I would. Because she was a terrible bitch.
She was my terrible bitch. A few weeks after she died, there was a knock on the door. And I opened it. And there was Captain Birdseye. My father.
Oh, Captain Birdseye.
And we met again. It was really touching. Really touching. He said to me, I only want the best for the captain's table. And by captain's table, I mean my table. And by table, I mean family. And by best, I mean you. It was a terrible analogy.
Were there tears?
Yeah, I guess.
You get.
I don't tell stories in the same way you do. Well, it was a summer day in 1984. So often since Chocolate Bloke was hanging himself. He said to me, "Come on, son, let's go to France." And we did. We went to France.
Where did you go?
Paris and Nice.
No?
No, Nice.
Nice?
We went to Paris. Now, I assumed on going to Paris that I had GCSE French, so I assumed I could speak French like a native. But given that very few people wanted to know the way to the station or the hobbies of my fictional siblings, it was we went, we had a great time, the two of us. I wanted to see all the sights, but my father, he just wanted to sit there. Wanted to sit around eating brie and drinking more brie. He loved brie, very into brie. But I wanted to see the sights, so I insisted. I insisted that we go to see the Eiffel Tower. And so we went. We walked around the base of the Eiffel Tower for hours, just chatting. I learned a lot about him, a lot about myself, and a surprising amount about Buster Merryfield. You've got some lines here.
Oh, yes, sorry. Fred, my boy,
Yes, Father.
I think it's time that I told you the truth.
The truth, Father, what is it?
The truth is,
Yes.
Fred,
Yes?
you are not alone.
What?
No. Now listen to me very carefully. What I'm about to tell you is very, very carefully. I shall say this only once. That's a reference to Hello, Hello. We'll come to that later. You have got a book.
Then, suddenly, let's change the scene. Up on the viewing tower. 3 stories up. 3rd story viewing tower is Andrew Elroy on a French trip. Now, Andrew Elroy is on a French school trip. He doesn't like the French. He shouldn't be there. He's only there to get pornography and flick chromes and a nice young Beaujolais. He's eating peanuts and throwing them around at the top. Up here is his teacher, who says to him, you've got a line.
Oh, here, Andrew Elroy, do stop mucking about with that peanut, you! A peanut that falls from the Eiffel Tower, or any tall structure, could probably kill a man!
What, a peanut?
Yes, I haven't actually done the mathematics, but I'm assuming yes!
So Andrew Elroy did a sort of weird face by crossing his arms and threw down the peanut, which rolled and rolled and rolled to the edge of the platform, where it hung for a second here. A man's life in its whatever peanuts have instead of hands. Legume flesh. Let's not get into that. Then, bang! It drops. It starts from no velocity, but it's accelerated at 9.8 meters per second. By the time it's reached 20 minutes down the Eiffel Tower, it's reached 30 miles an hour, or roughly the speed of a womble on a monkey bike. By the time it's reached halfway down, it is going at 330 miles an hour, which is the speed of sound. A tiny sonic boom as it passes through, and then onwards, down. Now, I would not have thought that a peanut going any speed could crack a man's skull. But it can. It can crack his skull, his cranium, his upper palate, his soft palate, his molars, his tongue, his lower molars, and become lodged in his clavicle. They told me he died almost instantly. I just wonder what almost means.
It means nearly.
This happened on a Wednesday, of course, when French hospitals are closed, as they are on Mondays, Fridays, weekends, Augusts, and Saints' days. So I had to take him myself. The French police said they couldn't do anything about the incident. Their legal system doesn't allow for the prosecution of legumes. Lazy. So I went to the morgue and I spoke to the morgue attendant there.
Bonjour.
Bonjour.
Bof. Ça va?
Ça va?
Ça, c'est ton père.
Oui, je sais.
Ton père est mort.
Oui, je sais. C'est le mortuaire.
Et une arachide a craqué sa tête.
Oui, je sais. J'ai vu le arachide à craquer
Oui,
sa
ça
tête.
se mâche, il est mort.
Ouais, je sais.
Je suis terrible assuré.
Ne cliquez pas l'arachide.
Pardon, ça c'est pas dangereux. Est-ce que vous voulez un souvenir de votre tombe en Paris?
And he gave me this. The peanut. In a box. And to this day, I can only get comfort by shaking it from that orfish fingers.
Now, I was
in America at the time filming Speed 3. It was some mix-up. But when I heard that my dad had died, I got the first plane home for the funeral.
It was a beautiful service. There were so many famous faces there. Or faces with two features the same as famous faces. We were sitting through Elton John singing Candle in the Wind. And as proxy music started, they said the eulogy would be read by Keanu Reeves. I was really excited because I love Keanu Reeves. It's so good.
Yeah. You see his early film.
Yeah. The later stuff's just good. Bad choices. But when I looked up and I saw this, I was angry. I thought, how dare he not look like Keanu Reeves? This is an insult to my father's lookalike business. How dare he?
And the Clone Roses read the homily, and it was really nice. But they said that Fred West would then say a few words, and I thought, Fred West, there can't be much call for that. And where are his two things? I mean, I can see he's got the one thing, he's got the piggy murderous eyes. Piggy murderous eyes of a infanticidal rapist. But where's his second thing? And it angered me.
And I was out there angered too, and Harrison Ford had to take me to one side. See, it doesn't matter. Like, I just thought, why? How dare he? How dare he? Until I heard from the other side of the grave a rattle.
Pseudo-Lawley put a hand on my shoulder and I was inside. And I stopped rattling for a moment, only to hear this sound from the other side of the grave. And I looked up, and there was my exact double, my twin, the missing head. For the first time ever, I looked like someone. I had found my look-alike.
And I suddenly worked out what my father was trying to tell me. Life didn't have to be about not being like Fred West, not looking like Keanu Reeves. It could be about looking exactly like this person here.
And in finding you, I realised that, and hearing your story, I realised that life can be cruel, and it's so fragile, it can be taken from us like that, like a wave took Uncle Paul, or like a shard of glass took our mother.
Or the aggressive marketing practices of Curry's took Rumbelow.
Yes, or it's so fragile, it can slip through your fingers like a balloon! Like a balloon, it works out! Like a balloon through the fingers, we'll do that next time we do this.
We'll take this for the next one.
Oh, we good. So, I learned that life is full of unassailable peaks and frightening troughs. It's full of these sort of mountainous disappointments. And in looking at you, I knew that I should become like a wind that passes over these mountains. And I decided to become the Keanu Reeves.
I remain a Fred West.
You can't change it.
No, I can't. That's fraud to the bankruptcy patio.
So,
Well, actually, our dad, he said when I went to France, he said he wanted me to have a unique name too, so he gave me a nickname. Yeah. He gave me it's a Swahili word. It means the only one. So Kanye.
So that's the end of our story. A story of two men divided at their birth, who were reunited by this sound.
Nobody moved. Can you just feet?
Where
If
did
you
you
don't move your
You
feet.
sat here.
I was sat there, but I came in from over there. I saw I had it when we rehearsed. Not that we rehearsed much, obviously. I'm hungry.
And it tastes different.
Still was bacon.
Oh, should we run in a minute?
We're just visitors, so not at all. So I go for that one.